yet?
Yep.
Oh, we're live? Okay. We are live at 11:05. And it looks like today's going to be the Larry and Larry show. This is a chassis we're building for Larry. It's going somewhere. Where's it going?
Ohio. By
This
Cleveland.
is going to Ohio, and we're just doing the chassis. We painted the chassis. We're going to run the brake lines, and I guess that's all this car gets, right?
Yes. He already has our body.
Okay, so he's got the body. He's anxiously awaiting his chassis. What we're doing now is we're running the brake lines. And we've got the proportioning valve. So I'm going to go through some of the components, and I'm going to show you how to do a double flare. That's really a critical issue on doing a good brake line job. So we've got a master cylinder, and this is just no power booster, just a regular master cylinder. You've got the lines coming out for this, for the back. You got lines coming out for the front. Now, if we had a booster on this for power brakes, this rod here would be adjustable some. And when the master cylinder bolted to the booster, you'd need to make sure. This is just a tip that you need to be aware of if you are doing power brakes. That this is lined up, and when you push it in, you're not pushing the brake in a little bit, or it's not too far out where you got too much pedal. It just needs to be adjusted properly. We leave a loop here. I mean, it looks pretty clean, but mainly if you ever have to do any maintenance, this is probably the area you're going to have to do maintenance, and it just makes it a lot easier if you have this loop in here. But otherwise, we like to make a clean, I mean, we plumb the brakes. It needs to be plumb and square. We use through frame fittings here. You can kind of see. This car is going to get disc brakes on the rear. Now, if we go with regular drum brakes, we'll generally come down with just one and then cross it on the differential and have it go to both brake lines. Now, you see the proportioning valve here, and there's going to be a lot of debate. It's supposed to go on the front. It's supposed to go on the back. It's supposed to go where it needs to be. On a T-bucket, the front end is so light, what you're wanting to do is you don't want your front end to lock up. And you'll especially notice that if you're on a slick garage, your front wheels will just push. Or if you're on gravel, your front will lock up and your back will still be pushing. What this does, all it does is when you turn the valve, it cuts the pressure down going to the front. You can see right here it splits. It'll go this way for the right side, this way for the left side disc brakes. And what we do on the T, you cut the pressure down a little bit. That way you don't get as much brakes in the front, and your back and your front are grabbing about the same time. On the bigger car, it's just the opposite. You're going to need your back brakes are going to want to lock up before your front ones, and it's a proportioning valve. It's to keep the brakes stopping in the proper proportion. We use a pressure switch for the brake lights. You can, off an old maybe 50s Chevy truck, I think, or something, they have lever switches. You can use that too under your pedal, where the pedal actually comes down and pushes a manual switch. We always use the pressure switch. It's just once you get pressure to it, it's a negative. It makes a negative ground. Turns your brake lights on. When the pressure is off your brakes, brake lights go off. Pretty simple. Now, the flare. Very, 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 very important. You do a double flare. A single flare on brakes is just, you can't, it's just not the way to do it. Here's a freebie, kind of a neat little tool. If you got brake line that's all wound up and you want it straight, this is just a bunch of wheels, rolls on that. You can straighten out your brake line. Sometimes on stainless, you really need to use a bender. On the steel, or you can bend a good line just by kind of following. You don't want to kink it. You want to make sure you don't kink it. That's very, very, very important. I'm using a lot of very, very and multiple word things here, but there's certain things that can't happen. Brakes are very important. You want your car to stop. If you kink your line, there's a chance you're going to put a crack in it, and also you're going to restrict the flow, and the flow won't be going even, which is what this does. It restricts flow. So if you kink the line going this way, you're restricting flow on your right front brake. And what might happen is when you step on the brakes, that brake is not going to grab as fast as your left brake. So your car is going to want to turn to the right, or to the left, I mean. The same way if it's holding pressure on it, and your brakes aren't adjusted right, when you step on it, it might want to bring the car one way or another. Okay, so we've got, you get a longer piece. Sean is putting this one together, and it looks like he's already got a flare on this, a double flare. Now that's what a double flare looks like. Goes up to it, and this compresses the flare into your fitting. I was looking around for well, there's a style that we had a snap-on one, but it just cranks by hand. We use a hydraulic one. This won't matter now, but always remember you put your fitting on before you make the flare. I mean, this one I could have put it on from the back after I make the flare, but generally it's not going to be like that. You're going to have another fitting on the other side. You want to get it in so it's sticking out.
Again, double flare is important.
Very important. So once it's in there, I've got it tightened in here now. I've got two flaring tools actually. So the first flare is just going to put this shape into it.
It's also a law.
The law that it's double flared?
Yep.
The law of common sense, probably.
Wasn't back in the cars back in the day? Weren't they single flare?
Well,
I think so.
it could be.
We've seen some cars come through here that's single flare.
We have seen that. And what will have a tendency to break in the flare, I'm going to go ahead and I think it's worth a little extra time to show you what it's going to look like both ways. I'll put the single flare on here. I've got this backwards. Live TV.
I don't think he has his glasses on.
I don't have my glasses on. Okay, so here's a single flare. Now let me do your double flare.
There you go.
We got music for background, or?
Do 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 do
Golly.
do 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 do.
Oh, and the question is, the Jeopardy question
Yeah.
is, if you can post to this, when did hydraulic brakes first come out? If you drove an original T, I tell you what, those mechanical brakes were a thing to deal with. I am curious. Does anybody know when we first started using hydraulic brakes?
I'm sure somebody will Google it.
Yeah, you can Google and.
Or they know.
Or yeah, if you know, yeah, you get 2 points. If you just Google it and let us know, that's only half a point. But we do have a contest going on this week. If you share this video, we're going to have all the shares that we had this week. We're going to go ahead and have some kind of prize. Did we ever decide what we're going to give
No.
away yet?
Maybe a cool hot rod sign. I don't know.
A cool hot rod sign? Are we going to watch the Plas Cutter work this week?
Maybe. Well, we got a lot of cool old hot rod models in there.
Oh, you're going to give away my collection. You did that once.
No, it's still in there actually.
Still in there?
34.
I don't know how well you're going to see it. I had it pushed in a little too far. It's got the big roll on it, and this is just flat in there. So the key is get it in far enough so when you have your tool, you're far enough that you flatten the inside around with this tool first. After you get that tool in, it'll smash in with that, and you can kind of see it don't go all the way in that. After that, you put your flat part of the flare, which is this. Put that in there to make it smooth on the inside. Take it out. And what will happen with this one, you can see how thin it is around the edge. It may seat, but it'll have a tendency to want to break around here. So that's how you do a double flare. Always use a double flare. So Larry, this is Larry, and now we're going to go to Larry's car. This is the Larry and Larry show today, like I said. This one is a tall T, and these are both T's. That's a 23.
C cab.
That's a C cab?
Yep.
Okay, 23 C cab. And this is a 23 or 27 tall T. Not our body. The customer, Larry, brought it in. Wanted us to do some work on it. It needed, it's pretty nice fiberglass, but it needed a lot of different work. We're going to do several different things. I'm just going to point some of that out, and then we'll finish up. We're going to French some tail lights in it. I'll kind of show you how to do that. But this car, we're going to follow through the process probably this week and next week. This car will be painted. He wants the chassis black. We're waiting for a real nice front axle right now, aluminum one coming from Superbell. We need to fill this in. So we'll be doing some glass work to fill this in. If you look at the visor here, down the front of it, it's got a bad swoop in it. And we're going to go ahead and straighten that out. So we'll show you how to straighten that out. He doesn't want this vent. So we'll go ahead and remove this vent, so you'll be able to see us remove this vent. We have that interior console. This goes up overhead. So we'll install this console, and I believe we're going to make this permanent in the car, because he's wanting the headliner. Let's see, we can come around this way. He's wanting the headliner painted. It's got some pretty nice ribs up in here. So we're going to have to finish around the edges. There's a flat spot around the window that we can glue the glass to. I'm thinking I can take these trim panels, clean them up, and have just a small trim panel, paint it, and we'll be able to stick it in. And it'll have a little line, but it should look clean while it's painted. So that's just a couple things we have to do on the inside. It's got a body lines don't match up here, and evidently when the skin got put on, it got put on a little crooked. So we'll worry about making these lines straight, which I've already done most of it. I've cleaned up a lot of it. We cleaned up around the window and redid the way that the window is. But he's wanting a body line to come around, and we're going to put a body line up on this seam with some glass. So that'll be coming up. But today, let me show you how to put a French tail light in. These are pretty nice. What are these? Old Pontiac, or
yeah.
Are they Pontiac? So we got this old Pontiac tail light, and instead of just mounting it flush to this, and you can see if we mounted it flush, the back of the car is at an angle a little bit. What we're going to do, just like the old days, if I was going to French a car with metal, I would take a metal tube, cut it, weld it into the car, finish around it. With fiberglass, PVC works really well, and we've got some bonding materials that when we stick this on the car, it will not come off. Now, if you can see, I've got an angle on it. The angle will be like this. I want this light to be 90 degrees to the ground. I don't want the light angling up like that if I put it in. So I've cut this. This light's going to fit in here, and we're probably going to set it in, I don't know, about that far. And then I'll just sculpt around the edges of this once it's in, sculpt it so it'll look like a French tail light, and recess it in there. I just finished up with a trick. And I didn't do it on this one. I've cut a lot of them, so I just took it to the saw. But if you want to make sure you've got a 90, go ahead, get you a level. And I've got these both, this is cut at a 90 on this side, so this is level here. You can see the amount of gap on the top here. This is almost like an old pinstriper trick. If I was a pinstriper and I wanted to make a line, I use my finger as a guide. And there's a line here. This is a marker, but if I had a brush in my hand, I'd just use the line as a guide with my finger. So I've just made a line as straight as that. So I want to do kind of the same thing here. I'm holding this at a 90. I'm kind of using my finger as a guide. I'm going to go right around this, using my finger as a guide. And you can see the angle now. So if I would take it to the bandsaw and just cut it at that angle, I would have an angle here where I could just put it on and it would be a 90 to the ground. And that's the way you're pretty sure you got it. Or you can just take it and go, I think it's about that far, and run it through. Either way, just so you get it at a 90. That's pretty important. So we'll get this attached. I think tomorrow we're going to show you the finished interior for a Model A. And we'll probably go ahead and install one of these on tomorrow. So tomorrow's show live at 11:05. Expect us to be working on this. We're going to be working on this Larry's car and try to get it ready for paint. So for today, that's it. Again, come Friday about noon, anybody that shared one of our live at 11:05 or our Thursday night show, we're going to have a drawing. And we'll pull a name from anybody that's shared, all the names that have been shared on our website, on our Facebook page. And I think we may just have a cool metal sign. Is that probably maybe?
Maybe.
We're leaning that way. So you may get a really cool hot rod sign, and you might even get to see the plas cutter work while it's cutting. I don't know. That might be a show for later in the week. So for today, thanks for watching.